Here's George Foreman with InventHelp.
Hi, I'm George Foreman. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp has been helping inventors for more than 30 years and has sales offices nationwide. InventHelp can submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas. If you have an idea and want to try to patent it and submit it to companies, you should call InventHelp today for free information.
Listen, I can't guarantee a company will be interested in your idea, but I believe every inventor deserves the opportunity to step into the ring and take their best shot. Put InventHelp in your corner.
To get your free inventor's information, call 1-800-353-6490. That's 1-800-353-6490. Again, 1-800-353-6490.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
We believe in the American way, and we built this country called the USA, and we fly our flag because we're proud and free, we're Americans. Red, white, and blue is our way of life. Never back down from a challenge or a fight. Nature provides, God gives the rights, we're Americans. We fish the waters and we hunt the lands. We forge the steel with our own two hands. With what we've got, we do the best we can, we're Americans.
This is Rio of Madison Rising, and you're listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
It's time now for the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show. Now, here's Grouchy.
Good evening, everybody. Glad to finally get on the air with you here. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty at the mothership in Oklahoma, so please bear with us. We're on Plan C connectivity here. That's right, that's a conference call via cell phone. It is what it is. We're going to make it happen. Got a good show lined up for you tonight. We'll blaze through it a little quicker than we would have, and that's okay, too. We'll get the main points across. Coming up right after me tonight, you got Jesse's POV, and then we have one more week, it looks like, of Station Manager's Pick, and then America Off the Rails with Rowdy Rick after that. So do yourself a favor. It's Wednesday night. TV sucks. Stick right here with KLRN Radio and get your knowledge on. All right, so what's happening? Well, we're going to talk budget, and we're going to talk taxes, and we're going to talk a lot of goalpost moving, if you will. Yeah, I mentioned that in a tweet earlier today, but you'll see what I mean a little later. So right now, President Trump has made a request that Congress include $1.4 billion to fund the beginning of his proposed wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, this is equal to, you're going to love this, just over 1/3 of 1% of what the federal government will spend in total this year. That's 0.035%. That's what he's asking for. Anyway, it also equals less than the Department of Health and Human Services spends in just 12 hours and less than the Treasury collects in taxes in 4 hours. And that is assuming that HHS spends money 24 hours a day and the Treasury collects it 24 hours a day. You get it. They break it down hour by hour. So, you get the idea there. In its baseline budget projections published back in January, the Congressional Budget Office estimated that in fiscal year 2017, which runs through September, the federal government will collect $3.404 trillion in taxes and spend $3.963 trillion. Now, you can do the math. 963 minus 404 equals how many billions of dollars added to the debt and deficit, because there'll be some of both. So on March 16th, President Trump sent a letter to House Speaker Paul Ryan requesting certain items be included in the continuing resolution that Congress must pass to fund the government for the remainder of the fiscal year after the current resolution expires on April 28th. This letter requested approximately $1.4 billion for the wall project, which we know has now been scrapped from the budget. So why are we talking about it? Well, because this is part of that moving goalpost thing I mentioned. The OMB summary on the President's request, which was attached to his letter to Speaker Ryan, asked that the CR include 1.4 for Customs and Border Protection, procurement, construction, and improvements, including $999 million for planning, design, and construction of the first installment of the border wall, $179 million for access roads, gates, and other tactical infrastructure projects, and $200 million for border security technology deployments. The OMB summary also calls for $18 million for project management, oversight, and support for the border wall. Now, the $1.4 billion that Trump wants from Congress, that wanted from Congress to begin the border wall project, we covered that already. It equals a minuscule percentage of what's going to be spent. So by comparison, we know we did the Department of Health and Human Services already. They're going to spend $1.1 trillion and change in fiscal 2017. Really? Health and Human Services alone is going to spend over $1 trillion this year. That's $126.5 million for each of the 8,760 hours, business hours. Is that business hours? It doesn't say business hours. 8,760 hours in the fiscal year. So in other words, HHS will spend $126.5 million every hour this year, assuming that it spends money 24 hours a day. So they are not business hours. Okay, they clarified finally. So this means that HHS spends in about 11 hours the amount of money that the president wants to start the wall project. So in half a day, 12 hours, that's it, half a day, they cover the cost of getting the wall going. The $3.4 trillion and change that Treasury will collect in taxes this fiscal year equals about $388.5 million in tax collections per hour, which means that they could pay for the border wall in just over 3.5 hours. That's it. Just like right at 4 hours. 3.6 hours is what it is. The federal government collects more in taxes than the president wants to spend for the entire year on the border wall. Isn't that ridiculous, folks? That's your tax dollars and my tax dollars. And the moving goalpost, see, Trump made the concession. Instead of going for the government shutdown, which we're going to talk about in a little bit too, because I'm not necessarily against a government shutdown, and we'll go into that later. But really what we got here is Democrats still think they run the show. And they don't. They absolutely don't. This is asinine that they're letting this happen. Absolutely asinine. In 4 hours of tax collections, we can pay for what Trump wants to spend for the whole year on the border wall. I think for 4 hours worth of taxes, we can go. I'm not a huge fan of the idea of the wall. I am a huge fan of a secure border. Now, you show me where the wall will make the border secure, I'm down. Show it to me, though, because we've had fences along our borders and walls along our borders, and they're being violated still. Now, granted, I know we're talking about a bigger and better one, but there's always a bigger and better way to get around or over or under or through a wall. So I need to see the whole plan laid out before I buy into it. I'm not against it. I just don't think it's the best idea. So anyway, and even though the president has decided to withdraw the funding for the wall from this continued funding resolution, you know, he just doesn't want the government shut down. So he's making a concession. He's making a concession. So he takes the wall out. But then he tweets that he's very clear his priorities have not changed and that there will be a wall built. It's important to prevent human trafficking, gangs like MS-13 from coming into the country, the flow of illegal drugs, and illegal immigration. And that was Spicer talking about that. Spicer also said, and this is a quote, so this is not yours truly saying this, Spicer said, "Don't let the fake media tell you that he's changed his position on the wall. It will get built and help stop drugs, human trafficking, etc." On Monday, President Trump tweeted, "The wall is a very important tool in stopping drugs from pouring into our country and poisoning our youth and many others. If the wall is not built, which it will be, the drug situation will never be fixed the way it should be." So there's this national economic and safety issue by having a wall, they say, and our country's safety is at stake, and there's plenty of planning that can be done in fiscal year 17. We're going to continue. The priorities are clear. The remainder of budgeting for that, and we'll continue to ask for more in fiscal year 18, Spicer said. Spicer emphasized that there will not be a delay in funding for the wall. Well, we know that not to be true because they've already pulled it from this continuing resolution. You know, you get different stories. I don't know, it's turning into a circus again. And I hate that part of it because there's a lot of good that can be done. You know, they say they hope to continue to get funding in that as the president laid out for both border security and homeland and national defense. They've always maintained, and then they come to fiscal year 18 that starts the beginning of October, the end of September, and the next budget will go for the next group of money, Spicer said. That made absolutely no sense. Why did he say that? He went on to say, "We've made our priorities very clear as we continue to negotiate, and I think nothing has changed on the president's priorities." When asked whether the president is no longer insisting there is money for the wall in the current appropriations bill, Spicer said the president's priorities are clear for fiscal year 17. There's a lot of things we can do in the remaining months up till the end of September for planning and making sure that we get everything that we need, funding that we need for the aspect of things, the aspect of what things. And then we go into fiscal year 18, we'll continue to ask for more. I don't think anything has changed, Spicer said. You know, for a military officer, he sure has a hard time speaking clearly. Something I've noticed. When asked whether the president is insisting that there is money for actual construction of the wall in the current appropriations bill, Spicer said, "We are still in discussions with the House and Senate leadership, but yada, yada, yada. The president's very clear. He wants a wall. He wants it done soon. Yada, yada, yada." Okay, so there's things we need to do to protect our country. Yeah, no kidding. I like how he has included human trafficking so strongly in this argument, though. For those of you that don't know, I am a huge supporter of stopping human trafficking. It's a disgusting practice, and it seems to be growing instead of shrinking, but I am so glad to see a president that has put this out in the forefront so much and is actually trying to do something about it. Now, if we can get Congress on board to do something about it, maybe we can make some inroads into it. So human trafficking, flow of illegal drugs, and, of course, gangs. We're going to make sure that while we achieved a significant drop in illegal alien border crossings, which they're saying is down 61% since January, that this is something that's in our country's long-term national security interests, Spicer added. When asked whether actual construction of the wall can wait until the fall, Spicer said, no, it's not a question of wait until the fall. I think there's a lot of things that have to happen. It's like any construction. Before you start construction, the reporter asked, well, you got to start doing some planning and things, so we will take the first steps now, and then we'll continue to seek funding through fiscal year 18 and further budget to make sure that it is completed, and then he stops and says that it is completed. So, yeah. So, will Republicans and Democrats agree on a spending bill by the April 28th deadline to keep the federal government funded for the rest of the fiscal year? Well, Mick Mulvaney, the White House budget director, is hopeful. He says, here is what concerns me, is that we informed the Democrats yesterday that we are not going to insist on bricks and mortar for President Trump's border wall right now. See, I told you, they pulled the wall. We're going to move that discussion until September of this fiscal year for fiscal year 18. Mulvaney blamed Senate rules for the Republicans' reluctance to insist on their priorities in the must-pass spending bill. Although Republicans control both the House and the Senate, most bills, including spending bills, take 60 votes in the Senate. Mulvaney noted, which means the 52 Senate Republicans would need 8 Democrats to join them in passing a bill to fund the government through September. That is not going to happen in the current political climate, which means that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have a place at the table. We recognize that, but that's why we just can't do it on our own. So now we're getting into the reality of politics. This, folks, is where I told you several months back, this is what's going to frustrate Trump more than anything. He's not used to this. He's used to walking into a boardroom, looking at his board members and his CEO-type people, his C-level executives, and he's saying, this is my vision, this is the goal, make it happen, walk out of the room, and come back next month to get the progress reports. Okay, that doesn't happen with Congress. This is a whole different game. So the Republicans are particularly eager to avoid a temporary government shutdown. Again, I don't know why. We'll get into that in a little bit. Democrats keep repeating that a shutdown would be all Republicans' fault, even though they would be the ones blocking the funding legislation. So when Mulvaney was asked if President Trump is willing to sign a government spending bill that does not include money for construction of a physical barrier on the border, yeah, he said, because I think the bill, at least the offer that we received from the Democrats the last couple of days, included a good bit of money for border security, Mulvaney replied. Democrats said they'd go to the mat and shut the government down over the border wall, the bricks and mortar. But there's things we agree on, both parties do, in securing the border. And it allows the president to follow through on his promise to make that border more secure, stop people from coming over, and stop the flow of drugs. So there are things that can be done by way of maintenance and technology, gates, bridges, roads, that kind of stuff make a real difference in that southern border security. Mulvaney insisted that the administration is not backing down on its promise to build a border wall. Keep in mind, this bill is just for the last 5 months of this year. We're almost more than halfway through fiscal 17. We're only talking about through the end of September. So already we're backpedaling here. The discussion for what to do in fiscal year 18, which starts October 1st, that discussion actually starts as soon as this bill is signed. We're going to continue these conversations. We just thought it would be a good first step to get these things that everybody agrees on and take that idea of a government shutdown off the table. On Tuesday, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said the Democrats want the spending bill to include more funding for Obamacare subsidies for low-income Americans. But Mulvaney said, no, President Trump will not go along with that. In fact, they only raised that about 2 weeks ago. See, this is what I'm talking about, the moving goalposts. Okay? See, they see Trump give in a little bit on something, and then they try to take more. These are the moving goalposts. So Trump gives in a little bit on them, on their demands, and then they see blood and they think, oh, well, we can get more. We're going for it. So here we go. Where's the pushback? Okay. They complained about bringing issues late to the table. We brought the idea of wall funding, more military funding in early March to the Hill. They dropped this Obamacare bailout, this insurance company payment about 2 weeks ago. They raised Puerto Rico, Medicaid funding for Puerto Rico, for the first time a couple of days ago. So these are things that they're bringing to the table very late. The Democrats are bringing these to the table very, very late after complaining that the Republicans were being late to the table. So Mulvaney says we've made it clear early on, if you want to talk about those payments to the insurance companies, we will trade you $1 for $1 on bricks and mortar for the wall. But they said no to that. So we agreed to put that off for another day, and we'll move forward on what we can agree on in securing the border as best we can right now. So, rewind, and while you're rewinding, catch your breath, get your drink. We're going to take a couple minutes of commercial here. We're going to blaze it right back in, and we're going to go right through the second half of the show. So stay tuned, and let's knock this out real quick.
And we hunt the lands, we forge the steel with our own two hands. With what we've got, we do the best we can. We're Americans.
Here's George Foreman with InventHelp.
Hi, I'm George Foreman. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp has been helping inventors for more than 30 years and has sales offices nationwide. InventHelp can submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas. If you have an idea and want to try to patent it and submit it to companies, you should call InventHelp today for free information.
Listen, I can't guarantee a company will be interested in your idea, but I believe every inventor deserves the opportunity to step into the ring and take their best shot. Put InventHelp in your corner.
Get your free inventor's information. Call 1-800-353-6490. That's 1-800-353-6490. Again, 1-800-353-6490.
Here's George Foreman with InventHelp.
Hi, I'm George Foreman. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp has been helping inventors for more than 30 years and has sales offices nationwide. InventHelp can submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new new ideas. If you have an idea and want to try to patent it and submit it to companies, you should call InventHelp today for free information.
Listen, I can't guarantee a company will be interested in your idea, but I believe every inventor deserves the opportunity to step into the ring and take their best shot. Put InventHelp in your corner.
To get your free inventor's information, call 1-800-353-6490. That's 1-800-353-6490. Again, 1-800-353-6490.
Never back down from a challenge or a nature provides, God gives the rights, we're Americans. We fish the waters and we hunt the lands.
All right, welcome back. We got work to do. Just remember to stay tuned right here all night. Jesse's POV coming up next. Station Manager's Pick after that, and then America Off the Rails Wednesday night, the grand slam of conservative talk radio right here on KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign. So, did you rewind on the break? Good, because when Donald Trump stood in the lobby of Trump Tower on June 16, 2015, and announced he was running for president, he told all those who listened to mark his words. I would do various things very quickly, he said. I would repeal and replace the big lie Obamacare, he said. I will build a great wall on our southern border, he said, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. Mark my words. 15 months later, he won the Republican nomination, and less than 2 months before his general election showdown, Trump released a letter to pro-life leaders. As we head into the final stretch of the campaign, the help of leaders like you is essential to ensure that pro-life voters know where I stand and also know where my opponent Hillary Clinton stands, he wrote. I am committed to defunding Planned Parenthood as long as they continue to perform abortions and reallocating their funding to community health centers that provide comprehensive health care for women. In his inaugural address, he didn't back away from his pledge to secure the border. He said, we will bring back our borders. 3 days later, he used executive authority to reinstate the Mexico City policy, which denies federal funding to organizations that provide or promote abortions abroad. He needed congressional action to defund Planned Parenthood at home and a congressional appropriation to begin building the wall he said he would ultimately be funded by Mexico. A week after his inauguration, Vice President Mike Pence told the March for Life that Trump would keep his pro-life promises with the help of the newly elected Republican majority pro-life Congress. Life is winning again in America, Pence said. This is evident in the election of pro-life majorities in the Congress of the United States, he said. But it's no more evident in any way than in the historic election of a president who stands for a stronger America, a more prosperous America, and a president who, Pence said, proudly stands for the right to life. I like to say that over there at 1600 Pennsylvania, we are in the promise-keeping business, Pence said. That's why on Monday, President Trump reinstated the Mexico City policy, we're still rewound here, to prevent foreign aid from funding organizations that promote or perform abortions worldwide. So in 2011, after Republicans won back control of the House in the 2010 election, then Representative Pence introduced his amendment that would, as Pence put it, deny any and all funding to Planned Parenthood Federation of America and its affiliates for the rest of the fiscal year. He said, I rise tonight because I also believe it's morally wrong to take taxpayer dollars, millions of dollars of taxpayer money from pro-life Americans and use it to fund organizations that provide and promote abortion, singling out Planned Parenthood, of course. The House passed this amendment, including it in the first funding bill approved by then new House Republican majority, but then House Speaker John Boehner subsequently cut a spending deal with the Democrats in the Senate and the White House that did not include Pence's amendment to defund Planned Parenthood. According to the Congressional Research Service, the GAO determined that Planned Parenthood of America affiliates receive $400.5 million in Medicaid reimbursements in both federal and state dollars. They also spent $64.35 million in federal Title X funding in 2012. I guess that's the latest. We don't have any newer numbers than 5 years old. This is garbage. So when House leaders this year put together their weak and redistributionist reconciliation bill to repeal and replace Obamacare, it included language that would have denied Medicaid money to Planned Parenthood for just 1 year, but it would not have denied Title X money to Planned Parenthood because reconciliation bills do not deal with discretionary spending like that doled out under Title X. When principled White House conservatives, or when House conservatives, not White House conservatives, principled House conservatives opposed that Obamacare bill, the Republican leadership did not bring it up for a vote. Now Congress faces an April 28th deadline to pass the new government funding bill. There is currently no talk that it will include language to prohibit funding of Planned Parenthood. So we are going to fund them for the rest of this year. But there is talk, and we already know this, that it will not include the language that President Trump had requested to build the wall. So we're going to fund Planned Parenthood, but no money for the wall. The Republican House can pass and send to the Republican Senate a bill that funds the border wall, but not Planned Parenthood. Or they can pass one that funds Planned Parenthood, but not the border wall. The former course of action would fulfill the campaign promises that got their president elected. The latter would appease congressional Democrats and the liberal press. So, Congress, GOP, what's it gonna be? So, anyway, now you know where we stand budget in the wall, continuing resolution in the wall. We call it budget because it is budget for the rest of the year. But anyway, here's where we go back now. We're gonna go forward again in time. And remember when I said that shutting things down in the government is not necessarily a bad thing? Let's talk about that, okay? Because here's what happens when the government shuts down. The truth of the matter, the bottom line, is that nothing really bad happens when there's a government shutdown. And notwithstanding the petty efforts by bureaucrats, for the simple reason that only non-essential parts of the bureaucracy actually get closed. In other words, a government shutdown in all cases is simply a partial shutdown. And since anybody with half a brain is not in favor of funding non-essential functions, or should be in favor of not funding non-essential functions, I view a partial shutdown as a good start. So you got the various interest groups in D.C. hyperventilate and, they scream the sky is falling. This is a time to feel a little contented, actually. So here's what it boils down to. The key lesson from shutdown fights is that our nation would actually be better off if bureaucracies like Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, the Department of Transportation, and the Department of Agriculture were all just permanently shuttered. We don't need that. These entities shouldn't get short-run funding, let alone long-run funding. So, now that you know how I think, you would think that I'd be a little giddy about a possible shutdown if this funding bill expires. But sadly, it's not the case this time. Shutdown should be seen as a means to an end. I want those fights to occur in hopes that there will be reforms that shrink the overall burden of government spending and bureaucracy, limiting government, not expanding it. In this case, though, the shutdown fight largely revolves around requests for money to build the wall. Some people think that's a good idea, others think it's a bad idea, but one thing that you can bank on with certainty is it is not a money-saving idea. Now, or is it? Will the expense of the wall be recouped in what we save in shelling out for health care for illegals, for what we spend in tax dollars imprisoning illegals, for what we spend in education for illegals, for feeding illegals, for giving them food stamps, SNAP, whatever you want to call it, all of the freebies they get that are our tax dollars? I don't know. They say we spend $319 billion a year taking care of illegals in this country. I think if we can spend $10 billion on a wall and that number gets cut, let's say that border crossings are down 61% as of January. They're down, and I've heard as high as 70. So let's split the difference. Let's call it 65%. Border crossings are down 65%. Well, we know for a fact that just over 300,000 per month is what was flowing in under the Obama administration. So let's just round that to 300,000, okay? So 60%, yes. So that's 300,000, 30, okay, 3 times 6 is 180, and then, and so 195,000 fewer people monthly coming over the wall. Okay, that's a good start. That's a good start just based on already thinking that they're not going to get what Obama was giving, even though nothing's changed as of yet. So, if we took the $318 billion and we took 35% of that number, which would be $106 billion, that we would, let's say we trimmed it by 65% of illegals flowing into the country. Okay? Let's say that number just held steady, and the number of people coming over the border was only 35% of what it was under Obama. So we're still spending $106 billion a year taking care of illegals at this point, because we've cut the 318 by 2/3, which is equivalent to the 2/3 of the border crossings we've cut. Okay? Still, a $10 billion wall is only 10% of what we're still spending annually to take care of illegals. How is this not a good investment? The bottom line is that even though I almost always cheer for a big government shutdown, I'm just going to sit on the sidelines for this one. If President Trump and congressional Republicans decide to fight for much-needed spending restraint, yeah, I know. I can forget about that. I'll be the first to cheer if that battle leads to a shutdown. So, now you know. So here we go, continuing with the shutdown talk. It was a message repeated several times at a Democrat news conference Tuesday afternoon. Republicans agree with us on a spending bill, or we'll blame you for shutting down the government. And it appears that Republicans who control all three branches of government are not only listening, but are taking it to heart. So get this. This is Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer says, last night we received a good bit of news, not just for Democrats, but for the country, that President Trump is easing off his demands for a border wall in the government funding bill. This money is better used elsewhere, Schumer said. If the wall is $50 billion, you could use that money to give just about every American broadband internet access. Okay, so here we go. Moving the goalposts again. Why is it the government's responsibility to give you internet? As far as I'm concerned, the best thing that the government can do is get the hell out of the internet. The same thing with healthcare. Get out. Why? Why in the hell does anybody want the government dictating to them what they have, what they have to pay for, and what they should be getting, when they should be getting it, how they should be getting it? As long as your neighbor isn't stealing it from you, who gives a damn? But Schumer said negotiations with Republicans have been moving along just fine on a spending bill that must pass by April 28th. Until President Trump's 11th hour demand for $1.4 billion to begin construction on his long-promised wall between the U.S. and Mexico. Schumer said we're pleased he's backing off, but he added that there are a number of outstanding issues to be resolved. First and foremost, Schumer said Democrats remain committed to making sure that there are no poison pill riders in this agreement. You know, like they're famous for doing. They only want it when it's good for them. He says that Senator Patrick Leahy has done a good job knocking out a whole bunch, but there are more on significant issues that have not been resolved. He said if Republicans want to undermine women's health or roll back financial protections for consumers, they should do so in the light of day, in full debate. There's been no secret about anybody wanting to roll back what you call women's health, which is simply abortion on demand, which is murdering babies, Chuck. So he's saying that these should come to the Senate floor for full debate instead of trying to tuck those issues into must-pass spending bills. Schumer listed some of the outstanding issues, or what he called Democrat demands. They want to prevent the Trump administration and Republicans from defunding health care. They want to help minors, they say. You know, Hillary threatened to put them all out of work, but the Democrats want to help minors. You know, like coal miners. Not like kids under 18. They want to help Puerto Rico. Schumer said he's optimistic that an agreement can be reached quickly with Republicans. Well, of course, because they're famous for folding like cheap chairs. Also speaking at the news conference, Dick Durbin said, I just want to add that the Republicans are in control of the White House and the majorities of the House and Senate. it's their decision about whether this government shuts down. No, it's not. Taking the border wall off the table was important, but it's not the end of the conversation, said Dick. Durbin called for fair funding in a supplemental request for the DOD. Fair funding means less than Republicans want, in other words. And on the non-defense side, he listed important considerations such as health benefits for coal miners, which Senator Mitch McConnell also supports, helping the people in Puerto Rico with Medicaid, and making sure the Trump administration does not fulfill its other major promise to end Obamacare. So they just want to be obstructionists, is what it boils down to. Leahy, described by Schumer as the poison pill buster, said his message has been simple all along. We can do this in a responsible way and keep the government going. You Republicans should not want to shut down the government, and they are the only ones who have the power to shut down the government. No, what a lie. You see, and this is why Republicans suck, because they let Democrats control the messaging. Unbelievable. To think of the humiliation of the United States throughout the world if you Republicans shut down the government, Leahy said. Yeah, okay, so what about it, when Obama had it shut down? You want to talk about humiliating? Shutting down open-air monuments, fencing them, actually requiring people to come work at places where nobody works, to fence them off. That's humiliating. It's unbelievable that they are trying to pass this crap off like this. So that's about what it boils down to, folks. Now you know what's happening with the budget, with the wall, with the spending resolution. You got it all here, and we did it on a short string show due to the technical difficulties. I know poor Rick is still working his tail off trying to get it fixed on his end. God bless him. He is number one in my book. Aces all the way. Got me live on this conference call, and we got the show done. Just a reminder, Jesse's POV is coming up right after me. Then it's I don't know what Rick's going to play in that spot that comes after Jesse, but he'll get you something. Don't worry, he's got something lined up for you. And then it'll be Rick with America Off the Rails after that. So again, thank you for being here with me. It's always a pleasure to share the airwaves with fellow conservative-minded folks that just want the truth and aren't loyal to a letter after a politician's name. Conservative-minded doesn't necessarily mean you support globalist Republicans, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Folks, we've made it through show number 97. 97. Next week is 98. We're going to do it again. Hopefully the studio will be in working order. If you like the show, tell your friends. If your friends like it, you need new friends. But you're all welcome right here with me every Wednesday night, right here on KLRN Radio. Thanks for being here, everybody. God bless.
Oh, but ain't that America? You and me. Ain't that America? Something to see, baby. Ain't that America? Home of the free, yeah.
Here's George Foreman with InventHelp.
Hi, I'm George Foreman. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp has been helping inventors for more than 30 years and has sales offices nationwide. InventHelp can submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas. ideas. If you have an idea and want to try to patent it and submit it to companies, you should call InventHelp today for free information.
Listen, I can't guarantee a company will be interested in your idea, but I believe every inventor deserves the opportunity to step into the ring and take their best shot. Put InventHelp in your corner.
To get your free inventor's information, call 1-800-353-6490. That's 1-800-353-6490. Again, 1-800-353-6490.